Good morning, children. Today we are going to read a very interesting chapter, A Strange Transformation. The story is written by Franz Kafka. He was born on 1883. He was a he was a novelist and a short story writer. He was born in Prague, Czech Republic. Kaf wrote in German as well as in Czech. He was awarded the degree of Doctor of Law on 18 July 1906. Kafka's first collections of stories, that is Contemplation, was published in 1908. He gained fame with his stories The Metamorphosis in 1915 and A Hunger Artist in 1924. Kafka mostly wrote short stories. In his writings, he mixed the elements of realism and fantasy. He explored the difficulties of day-to-day lives of middle-class people in his stories. Kafka worked for a year at an Italian insurance company, a job that he left due to his unhappiness with the working hours, which didn't allow him to concentrate on writing. Now, let's know about this chapter, A Strange Transformation. A strange transformation is a small extract taken from his book, The Metamorphosis. In this book, Gregor Samsa, the protagonist, is shown to go through similar apprehension and anxiety due to his job that he didn't like. Now, since that time, the story has become a classic of 20th century literature and a case study for the surrealistic style of writing. The word metamorphosis means transformation. So the change that the protagonist Gregor Samsa undergoes in the narrative is at the heart of its meaning. Before we can attempt to understand what happens in the metamorphosis, it is helpful to discuss what surrealism means. You may be familiar with some of the work of surrealistic painter and sculptor. Salvador Dali. Dali was one of the pioneers of the surrealistic style in painting in the early decades of the century. His paintings feature ordinary objects placed in strange places or situations. Now, this gives us an important clue about surrealism. In Kafka's work, including The Metamorphosis, odd or unbelievable situations are discussed and described as if they were common occurrences, combining the ordinary and recognizable with the fantastic in a way that gives both a different meaning. Now, The Metamorphosis is an exceptional story written by Franz Kafka. It is about a man named Gregor Samsa, who is a salesman by profession. He travels from place to place. One day he was in his bed sleeping, and when he woke up, he found himself turned into a giant insect. So let's see what happens when Gregor wakes in his bed and discovers he has transformed into a giant bug. Wondering what has happened, he looks around his small room where everything appears normal. He sees the fabric samples that he uses in his job as a traveling salesman. A picture of a woman in furs that he tore out of a magazine and framed, and the rain dripping down outside his window. He tries to roll over and go back to sleep in order to forget about what has happened. But because of the shape of his back, he can only rock from side to side. Feeling sore from his effort, Gregor thinks about what a difficult job he has and the fact that his constant traveling prevents him from making any lasting friendship. He thinks that he would leave his overbearing employer, but he has to work off a debt what that his parents incurred. He suddenly realizes that he has overslept and does not have a good excuse to give his boss. Gregor's mother reminds him that he has to catch his train to work. When Gregor responds, he finds his voice has changed. His father and his sister, join his mother at the door, urging him to get up and unlock it. Gregor twists and rocks, managing to turn sideways and dangle off the bed. Then the doorbell rings. It is the office manager come to check on Gregor. Gregor rocks his body violently and finally tumbles to the floor. His family and the office manager come to the door to inquire if he is all right. Gregor's mother pleads with the office manager, telling him what a devoted worker Gregor is, while Great cries in the next room. The office manager calls through the door and demands an explanation. He hints that Gregor's recent work has not been satisfactory and that Gregor's current behavior looks very bad, especially in light of rumors that Gregor may have stolen money from the company. Gregor claims that he had a dizzy spell and asks the office manager to spare his parents any undue concern. While Gregor tries to lift himself off the floor, the office manager and his family discuss the strange change in his voice. And his sister leaves to fetch a doctor and a locksmith. Gregor reaches the door, turns the lock with his mouth, and slowly pulls open the door. Seeing that Gregor is now a giant insect, the terrified office manager backs away. The mother passes out and the father cries. Gregor delivers a long speech asking the office manager to put in a good word for him at work. Since traveling salesman often becomes the subjects of negative gossip, but the office manager continues to back out of the apartment. Gregor unsuccessfully tries to catch him as he flees and discovers how easily he can crawl on his new legs. The father then picks up a newspaper and the office manager's cane and drives Gregor back into his bedroom. Gregor injures himself when he becomes stuck in the doorway. But the father shoves him through and slams the door. Thank you, children.